VCs continue to chase consumer internet and mobile when it comes to deploying fresh capital, because as Arun showed in the data, clearly there's a penchant as far as this category is concerned. The second question is the opportunity for B2B and SaaS, is it for real? Now, the for real part was added by Arun, so I guess he's a little skeptical about, is this for real? Is this yet another bubble that we are seeing building up? And the third opportunity is around, deep tech, something where Tata Capital Innovations Fund has been quite active. But before we explore these questions in detail, I want to get a broad sense from Ranjit from IDG Ventures, sitting on a lot of money, some $200 million that they raised recently, which is why I guess we are seeing 8 transactions happening in 2 months. But Ranjit, it would seem like, the best way to make returns as a VC is to be ready with a consumer internet company to sell in every upcycle, because in hindsight, Taxi for sure looks very smart today. Myntra looks very smart.
2015 was slightly an exuberance in the sense that if you look at the data, about close to $2 billion have gone into VC investments in 2015. Prior to that, if you look at it, it's about $1 billion or so, right? So clearly, a lot of money went into largely consumer companies, and a lot of money being burnt in terms of trying to scale rapidly in that period. And obviously, that exuberance is kind of rationalized over the last 8-12 months, and you can see that in the data that the numbers have slightly come down. But having said that, right, if you look at the underlying fundamental data points with respect to the number of internet users, we have 500 million plus users of the internet, 50 million people who are actually transacting online, 200 plus million smartphones out there. So, and these numbers are only increasing, right? So clearly, from our sense, the way we look at it, the consumer story is something that is here to stay, and we will continue to see a lot more investments in the consumer market. What is different, according to us, this is for the companies and the entrepreneurs to figure out, is to look at models that are more sustainable.
Tata Capital Innovation Fund does some very unique kind of investments. You look at a lot of, I believe you've also invested in a startup that does agriculture in the ocean or something like that.
Correct.
But how many such startups are there in India, and what areas will you be investing in going forward?
So maybe taking a cue from what Ranjit just said. So previously, you would see trends and similar size of kind of opportunities coming in hordes. 3 months you will see more like a trend.
No, but VCs are always accused of investing as a herd, right?
Yeah, but now, at least for the last 4-5 months, you don't see, those kind of trends. So it's very wide kind of opportunities that you see. So, for example, what Ranjit was mentioning was we would continue to look at sectors, right? Because the opportunity space and the kind of stuff that you see is across sectors now. It is not as if you see only e-commerce and only e-commerce, or it's not EdTech and EdTech only, or robo-advisory and robo-advisory only. So for some reason, last 6 months, the play is much more broad-based.
So it's not a wave?
It's not a wave.
Okay.
So it's a very broad-based kind of deal flow that you see now, right? For us in particular, we have also been investing pretty much at the same 3-4 sectors which are showing growth, right? So it's digital, it's healthcare, or it is...
But digital is a very broad...
Digital is very broad, right? So within that, what we have been doing for ourselves, for us it is that broad play. But what we have identified for ourselves is not, let's say, an e-commerce company, but a tech platform that will enable an e-commerce play. So it may not be limited, let's say, only to a Flipkart. It can also be spread across the Indian marketplace. It is also spread across a global play. So that is the kind of products that we have been backing. Similarly, on the healthcare side, will not back and have not backed in a hospital chain, but we have backed, for example, Mitra Biotech, which does cancer diagnostic, right?
So something niche.
Something niche, more like tech enablers to the high growth sectors is what we have been backing. And I think we will continue to back those kind of sectors in terms of deep tech and in IP know-how based.
Venkat, last year we saw, the angel space really taking off because every second person became an angel. I mean, and I'm saying this in a positive sense, like, big industrial, big conglomerates, entrepreneurs who have exited. But this year again, are you going to see a correction? Because, these people don't realize that it's not a short-term game, it's something that needs to be done for the long haul. We had a debate on this on the show recently as well, and Sanjay Mehta said angel investing became like some tourism industry where, everyone came last year. So are you seeing that coming down this time? Because I think even VI data showed, how angel investments have been coming down this year. So take us through what you're seeing.
The B2B SaaS, for example, those are startups that have global relevance and able to scale up globally. So that was one thing. If it was B2C India focused, and it's interesting when people talk about B2C or consumer internet, the immediate intent is, oh yeah, it is some plaything or a nice to have, it's e-commerce, it's food tech, it is some fashion or something. But from my perspective, if I were to look at a B2C company, if it's internet, mobile, apply it to serious problems that is needed by not the 50 million in the tier 1 cities, but the 500 million people needing healthcare, needing education. So you can call them fintech or health tech or edutech, but I would invest in B2C internet companies who are applying that for addressing the challenges of the 300, 500 million, and there is money to be made. Take healthcare, for example, whether it is in access, affordability, and quality, there is a crying need. It is a need, not a nice to have or a want. And anyone addressing that issue. Startups that are leveraging things like the India Stack in terms of developing solutions for the 300, 500 million people are again going to get funded.
Currently, the way things are structured are, the odds stacked against, the founder and, investors perhaps have it easier. I mean, no offense, but, how is it working now?
So, if you are on an investor side, probably if you are going to be, over a period of time, it's likely happening that promoter shareholding is trying to diminish and diminish because of various rounds of funding. So the question arises,
some of them also cash out.
Yeah, somebody wants to cash out. So how do you create and continue that incentive mechanism for them to continue if the shareholding is going to be continuously dipping and they have no skin in the game? So we have seen, and promoters can't get ESOPs. So we have seen various structures on adjusting and giving an ability for them to create more money, probably do rights issues, give them some additional shares, do a catch-up. So a lot of these things are coming up, and it mostly depends on investors, what's the appetite and how their fund allows them to. So if a fund is to say that we are going to be a majority-driven fund, we are going to be running the show, in that case the negotiating ability to that extent diminishes.
From a portfolio construction perspective, at least the way we are seeing it, is we will see a large part of this investments going into the digital consumer space and the enterprise tech, which is the software side of the investments. But again, I mean, it's very difficult to say because when I say digital consumer, digital health falls into the intersection of health tech and consumers, right? So there will be these horizontal technologies that probably cut across some of these areas, but broadly, bulk of our investments will go into the digital consumer space and enterprise software, which is largely around SaaS and related areas.
Early stage angel investors obviously looking for liquidity and exit opportunities, sooner the better, and obviously B2C consumer internet provided the best option for them. So if as and when our M&As and other activities step up, you would see more diversity in terms of how angels look at things. I would also talk about, if our secondary market is more formalized and made more robust, you would see a lot of angel investors doing a lot more diversification. So not necessarily pinned down by, oh my God, I'm going to count on only these few set of VCs and what their investment philosophy and thesis are, and I will be able to. So a VC exit is not necessarily the only exit opportunity.
Do you see potential for enterprise tech companies focused on the Indian market? Because even if you look at, companies like your Freshdesk or Zoho or Dhruva, ultimately, I mean, they get headquartered in the US, or, they need a very strong US presence. So do you see potential for these companies or more startups coming out of this space to focus on the domestic market? Is the market big enough?
The US market is far more open to, technology adoption and new tech, and really it's a market to be in, right? So so it is not, I mean, if you want to build a global company, I mean, fairly large scale, even in the software side, I think it is I mean, at least my view is that it's very difficult to think about a very large company being built out of India without looking at the US from a software perspective, right? So clearly that is a market you should be in, both from a customer acquisition perspective as well as, the cutting edge tech part. I mean, a lot of stuff happens in the US on that front. So for you to get a perspective of what's happening, I think it's important to be there in that market. Having said that, I mean, whether it is to be US headquartered or not, again, I mean, that's a company specific call that needs to be made. And we've had a couple of companies that flip, right? Especially on the healthcare side. A company called Zomotor, which develops biobetters and biotech platforms, and there's a company called Axia, which is into advanced wound care. Now, one of the reasons we kind of flipped the company into the US was the customers and potential buyers were very, very specific about IP being housed in India.
In some cases, it's also been driven by a necessity. B2B funds in India still are limited. So when our portfolio companies have tried to raise funds, there's been obviously dearth of capital in India. There, as we were discussing earlier, there are waves, and as you said, people do keep on investing in those waves. So B2B, at least in the last 4 or 5 years, was not a part of that wave. Hopefully that wave turns and we have more appetite.
Everybody is only talking about B2B.
Yeah, but still, even with that, I can for myself say that I think even over there it's limited to some set of companies which have gained that visibility. It is still not truly a widespread wave where all B2B are gaining traction, right? So that's not certainly happened as far as the way I see it and the way I see my portfolio companies. However, when we have effected that flip, the appetite has been more than what we have asked for.
Right.
So in some cases we started with an X and we got 2.5x of the capital at a higher value. So I think in some cases the move to the US, both in terms of clients and in terms of being able to raise funds, is also driven by a necessity to be able to raise funds and manage operations.
Right.
For SaaS or enterprise product, is India big enough market? The answer is simply no. You have to go to US or other markets to create a $100 million company, which is at least the goal, if not $200, $300 million company. You can create a $20 million company in India, which has hard time deciding where to go. So for SaaS and enterprise, the choice is absolutely create a global product, create a global platform, and explore the markets outside India as well. In India, I find, and I would like to hear views from our colleagues, they are not actually recognizing what is the state of the art. They are not deeply, especially if you are creating a global company, you are not deeply studying the competitive landscape. And hence you can't create a differentiated value. And hence you go halfway and then find out that actually differentiated value is not as strong, and then you try to pivot. And you have all kinds of problems which
So
then
they don't
nobody...
define the value right at the beginning. That's what
They don't find in the early stage. And that is very, very important for all entrepreneurs, I will say, that especially in enterprise and especially in global, India local you might be able to manage, but global
But
companies...
is that changing now, considering investors are also more discerning about the kind of startups that they invest in?
So it is changing very slowly. It should change much faster. The quality of companies and entrepreneurs I am seeing, one point if I have to ask them to do is to do solid competitive landscape research, and then create a differentiated value from there, and then you have hopefully execution of that becomes a lot more easy.
This applies both to so-called deep tech as well as enterprise tech, and there is a consensus here. India as a sole market is not feasible for any of them, these two categories. That said, there is a immediate association. If you're a enterprise tech, think about the US market, and US is not necessarily the right market. Yes, you have to be global, but if you're going to be competing in the US market, the bar is set very high to some of the points he said. A lot of companies I know tried the US thing and came back and failed. I would say, look, there is a wide open world out there. Think about Southeast Asia. Think about Middle East. There are opportunities there for the taking because none of the major US companies are addressing those markets. So the point is, start here, test the India market, then think through Southeast Asia. There are huge opportunities, and you can still build a $100 million company just on the markets of Middle East and Southeast Asia alone, I think, in addition to India. And then you can think about the India angle. Too many companies seeking too few investors in the Series A stage. And one thing clearly I tell other fellow angels is make sure when you make the first investment, allocate a portion because there is going to be a need for a bridge. And increasingly we see that because there are certain milestones that these companies need to hit before they qualify for a Series A. And that means you need to give them that extra 6-8 month runway. So make sure if you are investing that you are prepared to give them that extra runway. And that's very, very important. That said, I think as part of the correction and the cleanup that's going to is happening, you know, some of those companies that don't deserve to be funded should die. I mean, that is a good thing for the system.
It's a funnel at the end of the day, right? And it's a natural progression. You've got a lot of companies on the top, 4,000 odd companies, startups that are there, NASCOM database, whatever, right? And then if you look at the number of that that are getting seed funded is far lower. And then obviously a portion of that kind of gets into the Series A given the based on the milestones they reach and so on and so forth, right? So I think it's a very natural progression. I think that is what was disrupted, I think, in the 2015 exuberance. If you look at it, a lot of these companies which were seed stage companies got Series A funding
and Series A that was some 20 million.
Yeah, $20 million pre-monies and $10 million going in. I mean, it was crazy, right? So I think that kind of got disrupted in that period, and I think we're coming back to a more practical kind of what it should be, right? That when the companies meet these milestones, I mean, Series A happens. Right. Now, to your question on, you know, all of us, I mean, most of the investors having a seed, and we also have a seed program. And the thought process here is to kind of really look at companies that are, you know, little futuristic, right? And what that basically means is that, like you said, I mean, if it's really a very small amount, these companies might not be able to reach the milestones that they set for themselves, and the next round becomes extremely tough to do. One of the thought process that we have is to see when we put in small amounts of money and the company is progressing well, we can actually do the next round ourselves, right? So that, you know, I mean, the company is not in a situation where they're close to the milestones, they're not there, right? But clearly, because we've been with the company for some time, we know the way it works, and so we possibly can actually help them with more capital and so on and so forth.
There certainly is a squeeze on Series A. I think there certainly is a dip, and the reason I say that is also because coming back to our point, the very same company, if it's able to raise money outside, then and considering that US is an ideal market and the demand supply is just adequate. So obviously there is a squeeze of Series A companies in the country, right? I think it should correct. So if you were to ask me what is one thing that we would want to change, I think that certainly is something that should change. Maybe a related aspect to that obviously is also because...
But how is that going to happen?
So the end pool of capital that comes into India is not domestic. All of us know that. So around 10 to 15% of the LP capital is only domestic. The balance 85% to 90% is actually overseas, right? So the problem that all of us face as GPs is that when we go and raise capital, leave aside, I think startups are still better, they have someone like us. If you were to look at us, you can count the number of LPs in India on your fingers, literally, you know. So there's absolute dearth of LP capital in the country. I think as institutions, you literally can count them on your fingers. So there have been some initiatives which the government has been talking about. Obviously,
you're talking about the 10,000 crore.
So that is one initiative. But even there are caps, right? So the exposure cap to a particular fund. So if at best what you are able to raise through Indian market is maybe 25-30% of the capital. So for the balance you have to go outside and raise the money. So I think that piece needs to be changed big time for us.
Your Nest Fund 1 looked at 8,000 companies to invest in 16. What does that tell you about the quality of startups?
Wow,
right? So there are a lot of startups. That's why I'm saying numbers are huge. And we rank number 3 in the world and all that. That is great to see, but the quality of startups has to go up. And that is an evolution process. It will not happen just because we want it.